Please welcome Johanne O'Sullivan.
Hello. That was such a nice introduction. I'm so touched. So I have heard that by the time you are 10 years old, your personality is locked in. So what that means is everything that happens to you between 1 and 10 dictates who you are going to be forever. And the reason why that's pretty terrifying, like when you hear it out loud, is because you're not in charge of those first 10 years, right? So that means other people and their relationships with you are dictating who you're going to be forever. And the reason why that was pretty meaningful to me is that my mother passed away when I was 6 years old. So right in the middle of that gonna be who you're gonna be forever time. And then my grandmother came and lived with us for a year. And then my other grandmother came and lived with us for a year. And then we had a nanny come from Scotland from ages 8 to 10. And I loved her. And I loved her so much that when it was time for her to leave, I tried to make her miss her flight. I told her that I'd lost something and she needed to go finish. She was running around, and then I felt so guilty. I eventually told her I was lying, and she was like, "Joanne," I can't do the Scottish accent, but she made her flight, and I was devastated. And so it meant that by the time I was 10 years old, I had a pretty complicated relationship with love and the idea of love. And when I was in my early 20s, my friends used to describe my personality, sort of the sense of Joanne, as this. And it was really accurate, right? Because love hurt, so fuck you, right? But please desperately love me. Please don't leave. And they both existed at the same time. So it wasn't that much of a surprise that by the time I was 34, I was still single. And at 34, and I had been for 6 years, and it felt, and it made me panic a little bit. Because, I did want to get married, and I did want to have a family, and I did want to have all of those things, but I couldn't overcome those things in me that were causing me to push people away. I just pushed them away. And then the few times that I did manage to overcome the terror, which was really hard, so I'd overcome the terror, but then immediately this would kick in once I was in the relationship. And this is kind of like a nice combination of sort of jealousy and desperation. Just don't leave. So those relationships were 6 months long, and then they ended. And at 34, I was like, I have to do something different. I want love. And I decided what I needed to do was have a one-night stand. Yeah. Stick with me for a moment. The reason why is because the relationships I had, they were really slow burns. For me to get into them, it took a while for me to get there. I once had a man tell me that getting me into bed was like a really good poker hand. And it was true, right? That's how long it took. And I thought, if I could just, because I never had a one-night stand, if I could just have a one-night stand, then I would teach myself how to push through that fear, and then I'd be able to have a relationship. So I had a plan. I picked a guy. It had to be a guy I knew somewhat, because strangers kill you. So I picked a guy I knew. He was Simba's understudy in The Lion King. So he was really cute, and he was a player. I thought the perfect guy to practice on. He doesn't want a relationship, bit of a player, hit on me a few times. He's gonna be my one-night stand. So I Google how to flirt, because I knew we were gonna go to a party together, but I Googled how to flirt. What do I do how do I make this whole one-night stand thing happen? And it was pretty clear. It said, touch your hair, touch your lips, make eye contact, and if you really like them, get them to touch you. And I'm like, prepared. So I go to the party, and I see him in a corner talking, being all playery, and I walk over, and I'm like, hey, and he's like, Joanne, I'd like to introduce you to my girlfriend. Damn it. journey over, because I can't pick a stranger. I had prepared for this one, and strangers kill you. So I went and I sat down on a couch at the party, and eventually this younger guy comes and he sits next to me. And I knew him, we had some of the same friends, but I never really thought of him, he was cute, but I never really thought of him as boyfriend material because he was so young. But we start talking, and as we're talking, I realize that he's flirting with me. And immediately the panic starts, right? Because I wasn't prepared, so the terror, so I can feel the hand, and I'm like, no, stay down, do the flirty things, touch your hair, touch your mouth, look at him in the eyes, don't. And I push it down, and then I remember, get him to touch you. So I say the line that defined the rest of my life, look how small my nail beds are. And he took my hand. He took my hand to look. And I'm going to skip this part of the story, but suffice to say, level achieved. And I thought, oh my God, I can do this. In fact, I was pretty good at this. And a few days later, I was out shopping for a bed. More on that later. And and he calls me. It was like a siren call, being in the bed store. And so I will say, we did not break the bed. Dirty minds out there, okay? I had always planned that I was going to be bed shopping because I had moved in the 3 days between us being together and 3 days later. And I was moving out of a dank basement into a nicer apartment, and the bottom of the bed that I had been staying in was completely covered with black mold. I know. And so when he called me, he was like, I was going to call you a few days before, but I'm having this lung issue. I'm like, wonder what that could be. And he asked me out. I told him that eventually, but he asked me out, and 3 years later, he was my husband. And 2 years after that, we had our daughter. Thank you. That's right. I did it. And you may wonder what happened to this part of the equation, like how did I manage to keep up with the jealousy and the desperation and all of that? Well, I found out that if you get beyond the 6 months, that kind of fades away with real love. And so I wondered, did I break the science? Like, did I prove that it's not true, that you can get out of this loop of who you are, of what you were for the first 10 years of your life? And to be honest with you, I'm not sure. But I do know that if I hadn't decided to change, if I hadn't decided to have that one night stand, I don't think I would have found my love, my husband. So for any of you out there who may be wanting love, I encourage you to look around this room. And if it so happens that you have small nail beds, I give you permission to steal my line. Thank you.